Hello, everyone. Welcome to Remainders, where we talk about all the movies that remain. Today, we are going to be talking about the recent Oscar-winning film, The Substance. I'm very excited. My name is Patrick. With me, as always, the hardest working man I know, Darren Varell. How's it going, bud?
Going great. We're fresh off the Oscars, which was yesterday, and it's funny. I know you don't really love watching the Oscars, so I'm interested to hear your big take on the night.
Oh, nice. I mean, I've always kind of hate watched the Oscars. I shouldn't even say that. I've always watched them. They've always been pretty trash, but we're cinephiles. We fucking love movies. So it's like, even if it's garbage, it's still worth watching. It totally is. And we'll get into it. But first reactions, it was honestly one of the better Oscar presentations I've seen in a long time. Now, I am a lifelong Conan enthusiast, so that had just a little bit to do with it.
Yeah, I figured when Conan was on there, I was like, okay, you're tuning in now. Like there's no doubt about that. Yeah. And then, it was cool too, because he's like, I don't know, it felt a little, like you're watching Late Night with Conan O'Brien, it was kind of cool that way.
Oh, I mean, I can attest. I mean, I was thinking about it. I mean, all through middle school and early high school, me and my best friend at the time lived across the street, Andy Rivers. He's probably listening right now. He's always the first to call out my poor taste in film. So he is always hooking up with that. But for several summers, Late Night with Conan, I mean, that was like the show we would be watching if we were not playing GoldenEye or Smash Brothers on 64. The absurdism of Late Night back in his 90s show was fantastic. I mean, so I haven't really kept up with him too much. I listen to his podcast sometimes, after the whole Tonight Show debacle, but he's always been a presence. And man, his monologue at the Oscars was definite throwback. He's basically still sounding the exact same, perfecting the self-deprecating tone that I've always loved about him. So,
yeah, that was great. And, you said,
I didn't even ask. Did you watch the whole Oscars?
I did, yeah. And you sometimes I'll miss it too. Like I tried to sort of watch as many films as I could that were up this year, because unfortunately I hadn't seen a lot of them. But with us talking about The Substance today, it was so cool to be able to watch that. And when your reaction was like, "Oh my God, I can't stop thinking about this movie after you watched it," I was like, "Yeah, okay, I get it. Like, if Pat likes it, there's got to be something in there that's going to be exclusively." Different, than what I'm thinking this movie is. And I'll just say this as I go into this talk, most of the films this year, I think the reason I didn't see a lot of them is they didn't seem to appeal to me from the trailers that I saw and stuff like that. And I don't usually watch a lot of those. I love Sean Baker, right? We've covered Florida Project on here. Tangerine is so great. And when that movie, when Anora was in theaters and stuff like that, I didn't really understand completely what it was about, and it didn't seem to really appeal to me for whatever reason. And that's weird because I love Sean Baker, but I still, it's right down the street at the Vista, and it played for a long time, and I didn't see it for whatever reason. And I saw it the day of the Oscars. I think we rented it just to, we got to see this, and I'm so glad that was my favorite movie, and I'm so glad it did so well.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
I kind of had a similar experience where I just had not watched a lot of them. I had some extra time this past weekend before, and so I actually did catch up with almost all of them. I have not seen Wicked or Emilia Perez, and to be honest, I don't think I'm missing too much from not seeing those, but I did catch up with all the other ones. Nickel Boy. So this weekend I watched Dune 2, Nickel Boys, I'm Still Here, and Anora. I hadn't seen Anora until this weekend as well. So,
wow, you really, we must have been up 24 hours watching all that.
A couple movies a day is a piece of cake for people like us. So know how to fit it in. So I mean, kind of to kick off the Substance talk, I kind of had a similar understanding of the movie in terms of I knew it was a body horror. I knew it was Demi Moore. Kind of had a messaging component about aging and whatnot. And I don't watch too many previews. I don't really read a whole lot before watching movies. So that was basically all I knew going into The Substance when I watched it almost 2 weeks ago now. And needless to say, I was blown away. easily one of my favorite movies of 2024. And I was just absolutely delighted in what the movie was and just how insanely bonkers it is. And then B, the mainstream attention it got from the Oscars. I mean, the fact that so few horror movies get mainstream attention, especially from the Academy, is something that's just always been there. And anytime a horror movie, especially one as crazy as this, gets attention from Oscar voters, I'm all for it. So,
oh my, I mean, totally. It in a lot of ways, the Oscars felt new that way. Like it felt like there was like a new like guard sort of. A lot of like the people who were winning, it wasn't like the normal like Scorsese or DiCaprio or whatever. There was like it seemed like a little bit of a newer guard kind of coming through. And with Sean Baker, kind of obviously he's been working up for a while, but he still feels like a newer filmmaker to me. And then also seeing Tarantino give him that award, by the way, was amazing. But then also you said at the beginning, now remind me, because I was just so dizzy from seeing Anora win so much and being so happy about that. What did this film actually win at the Oscars?
It only won one, Best Makeup. So
best makeup. Well, okay, yeah.
Right. I mean,
anybody listening to this agrees 100% that was warranted.
So that was a good one. I mean, Demi was a front runner at some point. I know, I don't pay attention too much, but it sounded like she was. It was a very strong possibility that she was going to win. I didn't realize she's never been nominated for anything. I guess that was her first nomination. And so it was kind of feeling like one of those lifetime awards.
Right.
It may not be the best movie that you've ever made, but if this is the chance that you're going to get, Scorsese getting it for Gangs of New York, for example, or Departed, for example, something like that, where it's just like this is the chance to give that person an award. So it's kind of
totally
like that, but
I always feel like that doesn't always happen the way people want. But yeah, I've seen a lot of backlash online, like. To me, like she deserved it and everything. And I'm loving her resurgence right now. And she was in the Black Swan series that was on TV.
Based on the movie?
No, I think it was on Netflix, a Ryan Murphy series, and it was about like Truman Capote and a bunch of women that were sort of part of his life, and it was really popular. We saw the Emmy event. And she was there talking about it. It was really cool. But that leading into this movie, it just seems like she's on a roll right now with a lot of movies that she's doing and that are getting attention, or let's just say a lot of work that she's doing that's getting attention. And then the choice to sort of like play this role as someone who's aging in the business, of course, is always very timely, because it's like this is what I'm sure a lot of actors and actresses think about as they get older. Like, am I going to be replaced by somebody newer? And I'm not just in, the arts, but everywhere. People are always wondering, am I going to get replaced by somebody newer and better, or is it going to be AI these days? Like, who knows? So I think there's a lot of themes people can resonate with in this film.
Mikey Madison, who looks just like a little version of Demi Moore, getting the Oscar actually kind of bodes well for the
yeah. Well, how about that? Like chatter of that, I'm sure, was pretty heavy there.
Man, speaking of, the amount of shows that I do not know exist blows my mind. I just so don't. It's
TV just seems weird to me, because it's not really TV.
Siloed.
Yeah,
it's just
and it's always
separated.
On some sort of different, streamer too, right? Yeah. Like if you don't have, I think it was on Hulu, right? So if you don't have that, well,
And I've cut down by 50%, like my streaming services. I'm only down to a couple right now. So so that's all to say. Like
Criterion and Shudder make the cut, right?
Well, absolutely. Those are the first two that make the cut for sure. Yeah. But it just leads me to plenty of major shows that I just have not kept up with. There's a couple I should watch. Everybody talks about Severance. So just for discussion, I should be watching that one. So.
Yeah, that's Apple though, and I don't have Apple. So, when you get Apple, let me know the login and I'll check it out too.
I probably should be getting Apple with the fact that I haven't seen the Godzilla series yet with Kurt Russell. Still blows my mind. That would be the number one I would make a priority just for that fact.
Totally.
Yeah.
I was going to say, so yeah, we should give a little synopsis of the movies for anybody who's listening to this and was interested in the substance.
Oh man, I am so excited. If you have not seen this movie, I'm excited for you. If there was one movie recently that I could rewatch for the first time again and just watch my mouth open the whole time, how great it was, it would be this one. So, but yeah, The Substance is the body horror film of the year. From French director Coralie Fargeau, the story centers on Elizabeth Sparkle, played by Demi Moore, a once famous celebrity who is dismissed by her producer, Dennis Quaid, because of her age. In a desperate bid to reclaim her youth, she turns to an illicit drug called The Substance that generates a younger version of herself, played by Margaret Qualley, leading this film to an ode to Cronenberg and many other horror titans. And yes, this basically just sums up why I love this movie so much. It leans into the 80s aesthetic of body horror, and we'll get to all the references and inspirations that I saw. And yeah, we're going to dive into it because I'm so excited. It sounded like you were very excited based on what we've talked about so far and your reaction. It sounds like something that you really did like. So I want to hear your first reactions after I text you to say, you know what, maybe we should cover The Substance. Something new, something amazing and timeless.
Totally. I think one of the things that I enjoy the most these days about watching films sometimes is thinking about like the lens of like the people that have recommended it. And like what, totally. So I'm watching this, like thinking about you and what I know about you. That's the beauty
of art, sharing art. And it's just, I 100% agree with you. Sorry to cut you off, but I love that.
No, exactly. And it opens up so much more too, because it's like, all right, well, I'm going to, I know that you enjoyed this. And then I'm watching, I'm like, oh, geez, like right away, as soon as I see the practical effects kind of things happening and thinking about it in the 80s context. And then also just the idea that like, whoa, this is actually also a horror movie. I had heard that, but like, again, maybe this was good for this film because it didn't really give that away. And so like, you kind of have that word of mouth going where people are like, oh, but dude, you got to see The Substance, from what you saw, and then even my girlfriend has not seen it because when she's totally interested in the themes and everything in it, but she doesn't love like horror movies, right? So the whole thing with like, she's like, should I watch it? And I'm like, I know you're not going to love the horror stuff, but for like the overall story and everything, you're going to absolutely love that. So it's kind of interesting. It's got a little bit of something for everybody, but it might be for some people that they want to like close their eyes or look away during certain parts. And for me, those are like, of course, what draws me in because I love the story, but I also love the practical, or not the practical effects, but I'm not sure how many practical effects were used. Maybe it's a mixture. And I'm sure you're able to talk about that better than I am, but those were great. I mean, amazing that like, as soon as that scene opened up in the bathroom and she took that injection, it's like, whoa, here we go. Like I was way hooked,
Amazing. Yeah. So again, it is a very straightforward, even though some people critique it for being not subtle at all. I don't know. There's so much to dive into. I don't know where to start.
Well, I will say too, like, just the look of it itself, like it looked so beautiful, the camera work and everything. And just like the way that they set up the 80s vibe of it all. Like, it wasn't like they used like some sort of like filter on there to make it look like old film or whatever. It just looked kind of way the Maxine did it at times, where it just like, it looked so like pristine 80s, especially the Margaret Qualley stuff and everything. That's another reason to watch this film. I thought it was like very beautiful, juxtaposed with like a lot of these makeup scenes that were really scary, So we got Demi. Starts with her doing her exercise fitness show, and we pretty quickly get to Dennis Quaid with some great editing in terms of like just the way he's presented as the producer, who's basically letting her go for being for getting past the age of marketing and being marketable. And again, the shots of him just so like set the tone of the movie when he's eating the shrimp at the dinner scene, the lunch scene, and we're just like constantly coming back forth between his face consuming all this and just Demi just listening to his rant. And you really get the sense of like where this is going and how like she's going to be left out to the wolves. And
basically leads her to make the decision to get the substance when it comes along. But yeah, like it really is that quick editing with that in that first 30 minutes that I was really like hooked immediately. And yeah, and we get to that opening, basically the transformation scene when she does take the substance and Margaret Qualley comes out, and that was when I was instantly like ready for the rest of this movie to go. And it is like that. How do we put it? Old school method of showing like a transformation scene like that. Like transformation scenes have been around forever, you know, werewolf movies, whatnot. And this one is obviously a little bit different than that, but the shooting of it from the director is so effective.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing too, like having Demi Moore be up for this award, but also Margaret Qualley not, right? Like Margaret Qualley is amazing in this film. Don't you agree?
They're both great, but again, yeah, like I said, Demi just getting, you know, that's the thing with Oscars. It's just like there's only 5 slots, you know. There's going to be great performances that are left out or stuff that gets overshadowed. But yeah, I mean, Demi getting it as, like I said, the Lifetime stuff is, although I will say, like her performance and what she has to go through later in the movie, I think you can't ignore that.
Well, the interesting thing for everybody listening, and I'm sure if you know this, if you watched it, is that like they're supposed to be the same person, right? I mean, even though she's born as this new look, but it's like the better version of yourself, right? So Margaret Qualley is like the version that you want to be. They're supposed to be the same person, and that's like what the substance people tell you is that don't forget, like you are the same, but it's not a perfect world. Like that's, I think the point is that like, you know, you can try to do this, you can try to like make this better version of yourself, but it will never turn out well. And that's because like all of a sudden Margaret Qualley is getting these hits of fame and back to like what it felt like when you were this younger version coming up and getting that, you know, basically she's reliving Demi Moore's life again by getting the job that she used to have. And she's like now the new it person, but that's so addictive, right? It's like also about addictions. It's like this fame addiction, you know, and I can't live without it. And so she, you know, the point of the film is that like once you take the substance, you have to switch back to your old body and you get a week to be each person. And if you do it that way, it'll work, right? But of course, as the movie goes on, Margaret Qualley's like, no, I'm loving this shit. You know, I like look great. I've got the job. I've got people all over that love me. And now like the big thing is she's going to host this New Year's thing. So she does not want to go and do anything to, you know, go back into this older version of herself that is doesn't all that she says she does is like sit on the couch and like eat. But then that's the thing, they start to try to attack each other when they're not in their bodies, but they're the same person, which is the crazy thing about it. It's very well written that way. It
does seem like a doomed scenario. So like you're saying, it's like there is no she, you are one. Like that's what the substance admin keeps on telling Demi Moore or either one of them when they call. That there is no her, there is no she, you are one. And yet at the same time, they don't have autonomy over each other. Like there is consciousness only for one at a time. So they do basically operate as there is two. So like you said, like it just seems inevitable that they, you know, not purposely, but they end up fucking each other over, you know, with Margaret Qualley's desire to stay in the younger state. And I was watching it, like, and I don't even know if it is like defined completely, but like how much memory do they have of each other's like previous week?
I see. Agreed. Like, I don't think that's fully defined.
Which I'm okay with it not being.
Yeah, I was going to say, so, I don't know if that's a problem.
It doesn't matter too much, but I was remember like kind of watching it, and it was kind of adding to it. Like it just not. It wasn't like. It
just felt like there was an awareness. It didn't feel like it was very much like I remember living that life. Like it's kind of like, oh, I wake up like when you wake up or Demi Moore wakes up. It seemed like she was kind of like. In like some sort of dream state, because they do show that, right? They do show that like, oh, she's like Margaret Qualley's like sees like a bump or whatever, and she's like, "What is this?" And it's like, I think what they're trying to do is that's a stream of consciousness where she's starting to transform into Demi Moore and realize what's happening. Then she pulls that chicken out of her stomach or whatever, and then all of a sudden she wakes up. So it's almost like she's like, there's an awareness there that like something's happening. So that's the only thing that you get based on like, do they have a full understanding of what's happening when they're not in that body?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely no way that they have like full memory, because like each time they get up and they look at the present state of their apartment, they're like in shock. Like there was one switch when like Demi wakes up and like the entire place is just filled with like all the beer bottles and liquor bottles from Margaret Qualley party, and she's like how did all this happen? So obviously there is like a distance between the two and their understanding of like what each other are doing, but like you said, like there is like a residual memories, whether or not it's conscious or unconscious. So that's the kind of like that just whole aspect of it, like just added so much like while I was watching it, like what the way, as in like adding so much of like how they are one as they keep on getting told, but they're getting pitted against each other. So
no 100%. Yeah. And like again, I think it was kind of like so great because it if you do decide not to go back into your body, there's consequences, right? And so that's where it turns into this monster film, well,
then, that's not a decision. They make it clear you have to change every 7 days, otherwise it will not, you're fucked. And so we get a little Demi basically runs into the doctor who gives her the number, and in his old state. And it comes to light that he is.
That's a great scene.
So that he's experienced a substance of himself, and he's currently in the older version of himself, when the younger version is the one that gave her the number in the first place. And you really get this sense when it's like, you're kind of fucked either way, because inevitably over time the younger version is going to take more than it is allotted.
Yeah, and it's and that's like what the doctor that is now this old man, is warning her. Like, has it started to turn on you yet? Has it? And she's just like, yeah, because this is where we find out what happens if they take extra time. And so Margaret Qualley took like an extra day or two or something in the body just to like test the waters, and you start to see Demi Moore has this like, kind of like old witchy finger, and it's awesome. With the finger, it's so fucking good. Awesome. And then she calls and she's like, to the substance people, like, just Margaret Qualley is like, she's just like she's not playing by the rules or whatever. She's like, well, there's no her. It's you're the same person, and amazing, because of course now the consequences. We're like, oh shit, like what if this keeps going? What is it going to look like? And of course we find out,
Yeah, what was the note that the doctor gave? It was like the best decision I've ever made in my life, right? So that's the young version. Whereas when she meets the old version of that guy, it's like, this is a fucked scenario no matter what.
But amazing that you have the free will to stop it, and she decides never to do it. Yeah,
and so that's kind of the other reason why I love these two characters, is that like there is kind of complete ownership over these two women that are one woman, however you want to look at it, like we're just talking about right now, that is driving her to want to be younger and fit so she can maintain her career and status and wealth and money and power and admiration. And yet she just, even after all this, through it all, it's like she's like, no, I want to keep on going. It's like, that's like, in her mind, that's like still like the way to maintain a happier lifestyle for herself. So,
well, and again, talking about the addiction, it's like, look, you can like just like get off pretty easy here with just like this like crazy finger, or you can keep going, and who knows what's going to happen. And of course, that's the issue, is that like with addiction, you're like, but I know this is bad for me.
Yeah.
But there's something I still love about it, and I don't want to let it go.
Life is give and take, and I'm just going to take this for now.
So of course that progresses pretty drastically as the movie goes on, but that was the start.
Yeah. All right. I mean, a couple of things watching it. I mean, the name itself, It's just like the stuff, the 80s horror movie, where it's the white stuff that people eat and it's in their food and it just ends up being the goo monster. That's kind of the name that I was seeing the most. And then the injection, the actual green injection, straight out of Reanimator. One of my favorite 80s movies. I mean, it's just so clearly defined as an inspiration for that. So, and again, so Coralie Forgeot, French director. I have not seen her other feature, Revenge. I remember when it came out several years ago, and it was hearing some good things about it. I just haven't caught up with it, but this is really only like her second film. So, but she's a French director, obviously inspired by genre and old school kind of pulp movies. I see a lot of inspiration of Jean-Pierre Jeunet, the French director. Amélie, Delicatessen, City of Lost Children. I see a lot of like directing influence that she is inspired by that French director. So that the entire way the movie was shot, like we were talking about before, I saw a lot of Amélie and Delicatessen in it.
Yeah. Wow. I hadn't thought about that because I didn't really realize the Amélie stuff. But you know, I love Amélie, and there is some definitely, I would say, direct, like especially like the stuff that you. It's very clear that it's like a style when you see like the Dennis Quaid stuff, as you mentioned earlier. It is a very like.
Because has that very visceral kind of like
very stylistic,
very
and
up close,
and like the close-ups on his teeth like being stained from the cigarettes, and making sure that you get it very clearly that this guy is a scumbag, like not just by the way he acts and everything, but by the choices to show these things through the direction. Interesting. Yeah, that's cool. I wouldn't have thought about that.
And I mean, so Stan Jean-Pierre Jeunet, like he also directed Alien Resurrection, which was the fourth Alien film, the last one that Sigourney Weaver was in. And there is a scene in Alien Resurrection. That's the one when Ripley's playing a clone of herself, like her actual terrestrial self died in the third one. So she's playing a clone. And there's a scene when she comes across the operating, like the testing room, the medical room where her clone was being produced. And there's all these different failed versions of Sigourney Weaver with them trying to clone Ripley. And there is a scene with one of them where it's basically just Sigourney Weaver's face. And the way it's even shot looks a lot like the way Demi Moore's face is presented near the end when it's the combined version of the two. So it's just, when I was like kind of seeing the inspiration from Juno that she was putting into her shots, and then the fact that, there's this horrific scene with Sigourney Weaver, A-list Hollywood actress that's always taken chances, similar to Demi Moore, have this face in a monster, and the way it's like repeated with Demi Moore in this is like, when I made that connection, I loved it. So because I mean, Alien, the franchise has always been one of my favorites. Those first four with Sigourney Weaver have always been so interesting. And the fourth one, even though it does kind of get derided sometimes, is very interesting, like I said, because it's from Juno and he has a very distinct style that you see in a lot of it. So, yeah,
totally. That's awesome. I was reading that she wrote most of this film like in a coffee shop in Silver Lake, which to me is like another, just like that's why I love living in Los Angeles. It's like anything is possible, like you just go and like you're like this place, like it's like you want to make a movie, like, well, you just need to write it, and you could be anywhere around here. Like I could walk into House of Pies where like it was purported that that Tarantino wrote, I think, Reservoir Dogs, like some of it in there. Then it's like it's right around the corner. Like you never know. Like the next big director is going to be writing, their script that's going to change the lives of their lives and the lives of everybody. So I think that's pretty cool, And also, if you're talking about her love of like all these films and stuff like that, that's also such an amazing thing to be like, well, I love this like genre. How do I make it my own? How do I do this and like kind of pay homage to like some of the greats and stuff like that? And that's what I think is like the best thing about art is like, you shouldn't like ever imitate anybody. It's like that's that old saying, imitation is suicide. But like we all bring what we love to the table when we're making things. I think it's really hard to say that anybody is like a true original because we're all take in so much every day of things that we love, and then that goes through and comes through in our art.
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, totally agree with that. Yeah. Just be clear that all the references that have been mentioned, definitely a positive is what I'm talking about when watching this movie. And yes, I agree. I mean, everything's a derivative of something else to some degree. So art doesn't exist with previous art. So Demi's face I talked about. The monster itself, I mean, there is a shot that it looks exactly like John Merrick, the Elephant Man from the David Lynch film.
Yeah,
like there's I've seen like the side-by-side comparison. It looks exactly the same. Obviously a little bit more elaborated with the Monstro Illusisu is the name of it at the end, but clear ode to the Elephant Man that we were just talking about last episode, actually, with David Lynch passing.
Yeah, I loved. So just to talk about that for a little bit. So the reason that there is, should we move into that? Like what happens to get to that point?
Please.
Both of them are kind of hating each other now, and we've got like Demi Moore turning way more into sort of this like hunchback monster character, and she's the one who's getting fucked this whole time. Because Margaret Qualley is just like staying in that body and longer, and you start to see the toll it takes on Demi Moore,
and getting more status than Demi Moore probably ever got. So
going way beyond what her life was previous. So as like they're just like they're so aware of each other now and what they're doing to each other that Demi Moore like has another chance to like turn, and she's like already this like hunchback character. She looks terrible, and she's like, no, I'm not going back, because she would have had to like, now it's too late. You're gonna look like this, for the rest of your life if you stop it. And so as they keep moving on, we start to see a real horror movie take place, and it ends with a great culmination and the Hollywood sort of New Year's party where Margaret Qualley is like the it girl, and she's going to host what is like a New Year's Rockin' Eve, like a Dick Clark kind of scenario. And of course we don't get Margaret Qualley, we get a combination of the two, right?
Yes, leading up to that, I do want to touch on Demi Moore's scenes when she's basically the old witch lady. She still has hair, and she's still kind of looking like a normally aged person, not her age, but like still not quite completely deformed. And her scenes when she's just watching Margaret Qualley in her last week, like kind of rise up, and she's just mocking her. She takes this French cookbook, which was like a parting gift when she got fired. She starts cooking all this stuff. And so those are some of like my favorite scenes in terms of like what we saw her character was at the beginning, turning into this insanely bitter, angry old witch. And the way she's just mocking Margaret Qualley and getting all riled up. I mean, the tone is so comical. I mean, it's almost like a cartoon. One thing I realized, I mean, at the end of the day, this movie is just like a long Tales from the Crypt episode.
Oh yeah, totally. I know. That's why I think I love it. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
I love that
like,
shit. Yeah.
I like at some point I'm watching, I'm like the tone and where this like, because it does have a premise, but it doesn't beat the audience over the head with it, or in terms of messaging or blame or social commentary. It just takes the premise and then runs with it, which was what Tales from the Crypt was so great at, and just going over the top. But Tales from the Crypt they were like 22-minute episodes. This is like almost 2.5 hours. So it's
pretty long. Yeah, it
is long for that, and that is like where it lost some people. I think all 2.5 hours I think works perfectly. But again, like it largely has to do with if you're on the vibe of just watching this bonkers scenario play out for 2.5 hours. And like I said, the tone and the comedic vibes from Tales of the Crypt is just so there, and that's a huge reason why I loved it.
Yeah.
And her scenes, like I said, with that, with her getting all angry and going over the top like a cartoon character. I mean, you know, it's almost like out of like Ren and Stimpy, the vibe of like her anger and her mocking. It's like, it's so ridiculous. And that's a huge reason why I love her performance.
And you're right. Clearly doing like the cooking is like making her look even more like a witch, you know?
Right. Yeah. Just doing her.
Stirring the cauldron, right?
Stirring the cauldron. Oh, it's so good. And then getting some of the we get to a point where Mark Qualley's basically like, fuck it, I'm just going to drain you to the max. She's like, I'm not going to, and this is still leading up to that, the final show at the end, but I'm going to drain you to the max. I'm going to take all the time I possibly can. And she ends up being forced to go back, right? Like at some point.
Yes, because she runs out of the fluid. So they're like kind of drawings for anybody who doesn't know. At this point, sorry, there's a lot of spoilers, but you know, you were drawing basically from it looks like from the spine, some fluid that keeps you going for those 7 days. Well, she just kept drawing from that,
right? And
like basically, you know, had a full supply for what seemed like months.
Right.
And Demi Moore's just sitting there, and it's like, oh my god! As the audience, you're like, what the fuck is she gonna look like when she wakes up? You know what I mean? Like, you know. If she's like taking this much time, she's going to look insane, and which she does, of course.
And I got to be honest, when I first saw her, like completely bald and like hunched over, looks like an old decrepit person. You know what I thought she would look like? She looked like Spike Jonze.
Oh yeah,
doing the old
man
jackass.
100%. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah,
I don't know. I haven't it's not like I've looked at it. I'm sure other people have made that connection, but looks exactly like it. Looks exactly like Spike Jonze's old person makeup.
Agreed. Yeah, it that's the thing is, like, again, my girlfriend had not seen this film, so when we were watching the Oscars last night, they flashed that picture of her looking like that, and she's like, "What the fuck?" You know, I was like, I told you, this movie gets crazy, man. You know?
Oh man, I know. I still, again, like as we prefaced the conversation, I'm just so happy a movie like this got mainstream attention for the Academy Awards. Like, it's insane. Like, I mean, we watch fucked up movies all the time, and this one's pretty fucked up. And the idea that that it got nominated for Best Picture still just kind of is. That was the award in itself. Like, it didn't even have to win. Just the fact that all these normies had to watch this movie. Although you hear a lot, you do hear a lot of people in the Academy don't even watch the fucking movies, so that's why it's not even.
Yeah, they just
too serious.
Who they like or whatever.
But the fact that a lot of people were watching it who would have normally not seen a Gonzo movie like this, and they're like, "What the fuck?" That just brings so much joy to my heart as a horror fan. So
yeah, totally. Well, so at some point in this film, they she wakes up and she's all fucked up, and they've basically screwed each other up so much that they she says, okay, finally I've had enough, I'm going. Demi Moore is like, I've got to stop this. I'm going to look like this completely fucked up character my whole life, but that's better than going the way I'm going, and we're going to put an end to it. So she gets the stop package from the substance people, and she does it. She does it, and then she realizes, oh my god, what did I do? Like, I can't reverse it. And then she tries to revive her, and the whole thing gets all fucked up. And then they both wake up together. We've got Margaret Qualley against this old insane witch character that Demi Moore has become. And man, Margaret Qualley is like, you tried to fucking end me, now I'm gonna end you. And it's this amazing fight scene between the two of them. I mean,
it's really well shot.
Like, really well shot. Yeah, now you've got like this like fight movie, you know?
I was feeling vibes of like Kill Bill. Yes. Kind of like the trailer fight with Daryl.
Like, even when Margaret Qualley's kicking her, it's like she flies across the room, and you're like, damn, this, like, she got a lot of power.
And Volume 1 as well, like in the with the large fight. Yeah, very well shot with that. And I mean, the smashing the bald head into the mirror and just, so over the top with that. Chef's kiss for sure. So,
and then, like, you're like, okay, well, she killed Demi Moore's character, right? She's sitting there and she's, not moving. Mark Qualley is like, okay, cool, this is over. I'm going, and I'm going to do the New Year's, and all is good. But she starts to break down, and we see her, losing some teeth. That's how it starts. And then an ear falls off, and it's like,
teeth,
damn.
It's always teeth shit for me. That's the body, like the teeth stuff is always what gets me the most. And when I say get me, I'm like, it's the grossest shit that I'm like most into. So
and it's
horror stuff. It's like always like what is most despicable with horror is always what I like the most. So that's why I like.
And that's the greatest. Well, sure, and it's the greatest stuff because it's like this perfection woman that you're seeing throughout the movie is all of a sudden becoming gross and ugly, and she's like completely devastated, and on the biggest, like she's got the biggest night of her life, gonna host this thing and needs to look amazing on TV, all of this like pressure, and she's falling apart.
What's the cure? New substance, new dose of substance. So she takes the original stuff, right? She ends up taking the original single use one. So she ends up, doing a new to re-upping it. So needless to say, it doesn't go too well. So
no, you get a mixture of both of them that, like you said, kind of looks like I don't know, man. Like maybe a mixture of the Elephant Man and like the Pizza the Hut from fucking Mel Brooks's
piece of that. Glorious. So the consciousness for Alyssa Sue, is it just Margaret Qualley?
Well, I don't know, because obviously there's like two. You can see both of them in that.
See both of them in that. So did the Alyssa Sue come out of Sue's body? Did we see that? We kind of just see her like, it shows the consciousness, and then it looks in the mirror. And so we didn't quite see it coming out. I'm just curious about the consciousness of the monster itself and like how much it's Margaret. It kind of sounds like it's going to be mostly Margaret Qualley, but I guess it's the second version of her. So it's almost like a
right. Exactly. You get both of them, but it's like, it's her boring, like what she thinks is like the best version of her. But of course you're not going to get it because again, it's against all the rules, right? Like you're not supposed to do it twice. And
no, it's there's no logical reason why it would have worked to begin for her to think it would work to begin with. So that's what's great.
It was I guess the only option she had.
Exactly.
Otherwise she's like deteriorating. And then, the most
incredible Hail Mary play. So
the most incredible stuff being like, well, fuck it. I'm going and I'm going to do this New Year's thing and putting the earrings on and shit. Man. So
the picture of Demi, her cutting out the picture of Demi's face, that is what got me more than anything. That's when I was like, this is a timeless classic that's going to be living on for years. So. And
like, because the whole time you're kind of seeing this big, I don't know, photograph or whatever of her that she has in her apartment. And you're kind of like, you see it's like cracked and, but you see it from time to time throughout the movie. It's like the whole time they're teasing that they're going to cut this head out and put it on the monster, and she's going to show up at this awards thing or at the New Year's party. It's fucking great. Yeah. So the music with some of this, when she's coming up to the stage. And I love how her getting there. It's like there's a couple scenes that shows her. Yeah, go ahead. I was gonna say, if we're gonna talk about music, just before that, I mean, they're playing the Vertigo soundtrack again.
So I was gonna say,
it's been used so much, which is insane to me because it's so obvious to people. But it makes sense in this film more than it did in The Artist, when The Artist used the entire shit towards the end, which took me out of it because I love The Artist, but I just hated that they used that Bernard Herrmann score for like so much of the end of that film. But this works really well here because obviously she's like, changing herself, and she's, it's like a makeover, right? So anyway, go ahead, Pat.
Okay. So I mean, withstand that. So like I saw that it was the Vertigo mix. I didn't quite make that connection while I was watching it. So was it the makeover scene?
Well, yeah, totally. Because it's like, that's the whole part of Vertigo. It's like, it can't matter to you. Like, you need to be this version that I want to make of you. It's a clear Vertigo, like, or a love of Vertigo, I would think, for the director, because it's like a makeover of, I'm going to put my best face forward for somebody else, like, to, so I can just be this like beautiful version that people want me to be.
Yeah. Wow, I gotta watch that scene again. Because I guess I was just more to be honest, like the 2 times I was watching, I didn't notice that or make that connection with the music. I was just like so focused on what I was seeing.
Well, like I said, it's also a part of Vertigo that's not like of the score that's not necessarily the main theme, right?
Okay, that was probably it. So Rafferty is the composer doing this, and I mean, and this leads into it being on stage and using the 2001: A Space Odyssey theme, which is the symphony that's not composed for A Space Odyssey, but was made famous by that. And that introduction really caps it off and kicks off one of the most insane end scenes that we've seen in a long time. So that's just kind of like me kind of pointing out like the music, and with that subtle Vertigo nod, I didn't even recognize that. It just makes it that much better. So.
Yeah. And then, just when it gets like you, as the audience, you're just so in, especially if you like movies like this, you're just so in and you're like, what is happening? It's so absurd. It's so great. And then like to do it to the 10th degree with like the blood spraying the audience and the reaction shots and just like I know
the screaming, the zoom up to the screaming faces is just like that's a classic.
So fucking good.
Yeah.
And like Dennis Quaid, being in there and just like everybody appalled by what's happening, and her being like, it's me though, it's Sue, and it's like, oh my God, man.
Well, that's the elephant line. That's the I'm not a monster, I'm a man. That's that basically a clear ode to that for sure. Her getting the elephant man treatment. I'm not a monster, I'm a man. And so notes of Carrie for sure with the end scene. Not split
with the blood.
Yeah, not necessarily split shots, but like the entire like chaotic nature of it. And then the Brian Yuzna film Society. Have you seen Society? The 80s film?
No.
Okay, so Brian Yuzna, he worked on Reanimator as well, but that one is about class, but it has the last 20 minutes where it's just complete body horror orgy. And a lot of practical effects clearly in vibe with this film as well. So that's just another ode that she was using for this one. That one's far less known than Reanimator, just as good though. So
yeah, and I mean, then we got to have this monster explode, right? I mean, that has to happen in this film, which it does, and it's amazing because they're get her, kill her or whatever, and it's like. This thing cannot live, but like you can't really kill it, and it's like the Demi Moore face little blob going into the star and sinking into the cracks at the end. Fucking stroke of brilliance.
It's amazing. It's not even a critique. It's that I was just slightly disappointed when that was clearly CGI using that.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that like they should have just kept it with the practical. I'm just saying like there's a little bit of a clear separation between everything you just saw for like the last 15 minutes and then with that CGI of her face, like kind of blobby moving up. Maybe it's just me being a little tough on CGI, but like...
I mean, I don't know how they did it, but it didn't really take me out of it. I mean, I thought like the idea of like starting this film and kind of, they did such a good job of like in single shots, just showing a lot and introducing a lot or, summing up the movie a lot with the ending, because it was like, you inject this thing in 2 eggs and it separates into another yolk, and it was just like, that's the beginning of the film. Yeah. And then also showing the star and just like how it ages over time and how people were talking about, oh, I remember that movie she was in. She was so good, or whatever. It was done like you got the idea across so quickly by just a single shot. And
that guy with a ridiculous amount of ketchup on his food ends up spilling onto his like how much friggin' ketchup do you need in that?
And by the way, like nobody in Hollywood would have cleaned that fucking shit up either. Like you wouldn't have tried to clean it up. So that was like a little disjointed for me, just knowing that street is such a fucking nightmare. And for so many reasons, nobody would have tried to clean up their mess. But anyway, to see like it kind of like be over the star and then sink in was such a good way to say like, well, that's it. But it's a fleeting,
As you mentioned, all these special effects we talked about did win the Oscar. Pierre Oliver Persine, Stephanie Guillon, and Marilyn Scarcelli. They are the winners for the best makeup and the Oscars last night for this movie. So shout out to them. I don't know them.
Hell yeah.
I love them. So it's fantastic.
Totally. Well, and again, I'm so glad you told me about this. I had heard people say that they liked it, and then wasn't exactly sure what it was getting into, but just like Anora, I wasn't sure what I was getting into and fucking loved it. So glad that it did win something, and that it at least, but people are aware of it, and that we can talk about it, and then maybe someone will see this and want to watch it or relate to it just the same way. Keep making films like this. I'm all here for that.
That's what I'm saying. So like we've been covering a lot of older films lately. We cover everything, all the movies that remain. So, but when I saw this first time 2 weeks ago, I instantly knew this is a movie I will absolutely be watching in 20 years, no matter what.
Oh, totally. I wanted to watch it again. You said, I can't wait to watch it again, And
so like, that's kind of, that's the unspoken way I feel like we've been, covering the movies we want to talk about, which are the ones that stay with you, and like I said, it's rare to, have a movie where it's so clearly like, this is a movie that's going to stay with me for a long time. So
yeah, no, totally.
So happy it exists. So,
well, thanks for bringing it to my attention. And hey, if you're out there and watched it, hey, let us know what you think. I mean, I would love to hear other people's thoughts on it.
I mean, there are people who do not like this for several of the reasons we mentioned. One, like I said, it doesn't quite. Again, these are all other people's takes that I don't agree with, but it doesn't quite necessitate the 2.5 hours. Getting into how feminist of a movie it is. There's definitely people who think it's who's claimed it's a feminist film, but then others are explicitly stating it's not feminist enough for their own reasons. So yeah, I would definitely love to hear from listeners what they thought, because this is, I mean, if you're listening to our podcast, this is right up our alley though. So yeah,
no, totally. I mean, look, I'm just telling you, I'd rather watch this than Barbie. Like this, so. But awesome. Well, I'm really glad that we covered it. So, damn, it's like after watching Anora yesterday, I was like, damn, I want to talk about that. It's like there's okay. Sean Baker's got like a lot of good. I think every movie he's been making now is kind of like he's on that role. It's kind of like Tarantino. It's like he can do no wrong every movie you're putting out. I love him as a filmmaker, and I love this year's Oscars because, like I said, it felt like a little bit of a new guard. A little bit of a new group of people making films out there that are making them. I love what Sean Baker said about going to the theater and kind of. I don't know. Maybe there's a little inkling that like film is coming back, like a long form film. There's a lot of jokes that Conan made at the Oscars about that, like even like the little skit about like we put a bunch of cell phones together and made one big screen. Like, well, who's going to hold, how do I hold it in my hand? It's like, get this, the building holds it. It's like, that was a great skit. I thought, It
was good. Yes. Yeah. Let's go back to the Oscars. Wrap up, the substance, stay on the Oscars, cinema streams. That skit. I loved it. I mean, his, that's why I was like so happy with the show itself. Cause Conan was able to capture his absurdist vibe quite a bit. And so that's why it was great. And yeah, Sean Baker. So he definitely the man of the night. I mean, he was best picture. He got best director, screenplay, editing. Yeah. So it's like, I think I saw maybe he broke a record for like the most amount of Oscars one person
I don't know, but
gets.
That would make sense. Yeah.
I think like the most amount of Oscars that one person got for a film, because he did the editing and the screenplay.
Yeah, it would be screenplay, editing, director, and best film, best picture. Yeah.
So
I mean, Warranted, the movie was great. The editing was great. Like I loved it when he's like, I'm glad I got this. This means a lot because, the guy who put it together, you should have seen the footage. It was a mess, fucking amazing. Short and sweet a lot of times. But then giving his love and his shout out to going to see a film in the theater with Quentin Tarantino in the back, who championed his movie by putting it at the Vista for like a long time. Anora was at the Vista for a long time. And, nice. You got to love that. You got to love people who just really love cinema like we do and are telling people like, hey, like this is like advocacy for like doing things like and why it matters to go to the theater,
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say. I have my own experience with going to the theater now, but all the critiques that you hear people say of like why they don't go to the theater anymore, either consciously or subconsciously, I think are pretty valid. Just in terms of like price and experience. I think those are the two major things of why like so fewer people are going than ever. So,
I mean, yeah, but then when a movie comes out for streaming, it's like more expensive to rent it than it is to go see it in the theater.
Not necessarily, no. I mean, if you have like, yeah, if you are renting it that weekend, but I just mean in terms of, I mean, it's still pretty pricey. If you go to like,
I mean, yes, I'm not denying that,
Yeah.
but then again, I go see the movies at the Vista that usually aren't like
right.
current movies, you know.
And the AMC that I go to, River East, I mean, a Friday night at the premium screen is $23. So that's one ticket. So this is like a family of four, and then getting food is like easily.
Right, or we can have Netflix that's going to be $17.99 for like the lowest tier here, you know.
So that's all obvious. Like that's what that skit was about. So like critiquing the fact that streaming is just so much easier on your smartphone. But then also the experience. There is, I can attest to it. Like there is a lack of respect for not talking or using cell phones like while you're in the theater. So
yeah,
it's a very real thing. So
yeah, like that's like I think half of the fun for me is like because when I'm home, you got the distractions everywhere.
Of having to shout out douchebags, that's half the fun, dude. So.
Yeah.
Have you ever gotten into a fight and going to or
no? I mean, but dude, seemingly every time I never like to be the guy to call anything out. I try to move my seat, and you would think that would give everybody like the understanding like you're too fucking loud. Nobody cares, you know. People are. I was watching Hannah and Her Sisters a little bit last night, and there's that artist in there that's I forget I forget the actor's name, but Barbara Hershey's character is married to him, and he's like, "You're my only link to the outside world, Lee." And he's like, "I hate most people, you know, I just can't stand them." He's like, I kind of feel like that sometimes. Like you just don't want to fucking be around people because it's just terrible. Nobody cares, you know, especially sometimes here in LA. There's a lot of people that just really care about themselves, and that's it.
It's context, yeah. The situation matters, the context matters. But yeah, for when I'm at the theater, it hasn't been bad recently. Granted, I haven't been in a lot of packed theaters, which, you know, indicates that like so few people are ever going. What was that one? The AMC, the theater caved in during a screening of Captain America, and fortunately nobody was hurt because there were only 2 people in the entire theater. So
oh my god, man!
They even made a joke about it on SNL, just like in terms of like making fun of the movie itself. But like that's like the biggest movie, the third week in a row, and it's like. Fortunately, nobody was hurt, but it was largely because nobody was fucking watching it. So,
wow, yeah, I know. I mean, you know, that's the cool thing about going to see stuff at the Vista, the New Beverly, and you know, a couple of theaters here that are, like you know,
we're definitely spoiled being in Chicago and LA. We have some of the best theaters in the world.
Music Box is definitely always usually filled. You know,
we have some of the best theaters in the world, but then also the people going to those theaters are just going to naturally be a little bit more in tune with the movie and less, a little bit more respectful. But that's not how most people in the country are watching their movies, unfortunately. So
no, totally. I mean, can we switch gears for a second and just talk about Gene Hackman?
I was just going to get to him
because I was going to say, dude, I didn't text you about it, but I've been thinking about it. I mean, obviously we just covered Unforgiven a couple months ago, and what a Royal Tenenbaum. I mean, what's there to say?
I've been wanting to cover French Connection for a while, so we'll probably get to that maybe this year or so.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite performances of his. But I mean, I haven't been following too much, but like apparently I don't know if this is purely like conspiracy shit, but like, is it confirmed like how he died? I mean, it looks like it's maybe some foul play, but you know, at first people thought it was
carbon monoxide because him and his wife passed away and one of his dogs, and that's what it was reported on at first. But then now it's like, well, they found that there was no carbon monoxide. So I don't know, like, but fuck, man, like regardless, this guy was like, well, whenever someone that's an older actor that's been around for a long time and part of such like different decades that were so important to movies, and he's such an important part of the acting community, you start to think about like time and like, the relevance of that, those decades of film that they were part of. And I just like, you got to stop a little bit when something like this happens. And, I remember when Brando died in 2004 and Paul Newman in 2008, I think it was like, man, it's like that's like, these are some of the last of like these, well, at least for me, I'm more of like my favorite kind of time period is there in like the 40s and the 50s and the movies that were made then. So yeah, like most of the people now from the 60s are passing away, and it's something to reflect on.
No, I mean, yeah, the 70s shift into auteurism, and that includes the acting style. And Gene Hackman was a huge part of that, of just how acting was implemented in films, and how much that changed in the 70s to kind of be more recognizable of what we see today.
Yeah.
Like we always talk about, yeah, I love older movies, but like there is a different vibe in the acting style for actors pre-70s, and Hackman was a huge reason for that shift in the 70s. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, a lot going on in the world. I like that Conan did it. I mean, it was like largely less political Oscars. There was those really nice moments where they do. I always like the in memoriam, and you're like, man, a lot of people that obviously we talked about David Lynch last time we talked, and I like that they sat Laura Dern and Isabella Rossellini next to each other. I thought that was a little nice. That those two big parts of David Lynch's filmography and life story there were next to each other, kind of made you feel like David Lynch was represented. And then, of course, in memoriam, but also I was saying that Conan's thing about the politics was like, man, I forget his like little jab, which like he had one little political jab. I can't remember it now, but it was kind of so perfect. And so like, then he moved on, but nobody really.
It's the strong Russian joke about Nora. Yeah.
That was so well done. But it was the only kind of like thing. There was a few times in the speeches that you would hear stuff, but it was largely less political than I thought it was going to be. So
yeah, I think that's a reaction to most people not liking that at the Oscars, even when it's like placating to the vibe of the week, whatever, of what is political, doing it for political points and social media content. But like, I think even the people who are all for it still at the end of the day are okay with an Oscars that is more about a celebration of movies rather than the current politics.
Right. And I think that's like they try to hammer that home. Like this is, even though like there's a lot of craziness about like the industry, a lot of people are out of work here. And then there's the wildfires that are happening, they commented on that and stuff like that. And
I think definitely very appropriate. I mean, because that's like, that's LA, like that is Hollywood where they are at. I thought that was 100% appropriate to bring with that part where they brought the firefighters on stage to do a couple of the jokes for them.
Yeah, which were, by the way, those are pretty crazy jokes that they were doing. I'm pro Joker 2, by the way. So Joker 2 was pretty good. So oh damn, I haven't seen yet, but yeah, that was I was like, damn, that's a crazy joke. But I will say that there's also in the air, like a lot of filmmaking happening outside, Atlanta, and then there's like the McConaughey thing is like trying to get a lot of productions brought to Texas. So there is like this thought that a lot of like LA and Hollywood and the way it is done, and people are making movies. So that was like a big, I think, theme there is that but it's all about money, it's all about stuff like that. But I think the thing that I learn more and more as the time goes on, and I'm trying to make a living on my own as an artist, is that everybody's success is your success when you're working in an industry, right? Like if there's a movie being made, then there may be work for an artist to do the poster, so like everybody kind of wins like that. That's capitalism, right? Like there's a lot of jobs that are going to be made, and there's a lot of people that then, and some people would talk about that, like, you're not seeing the people behind the scenes. And I don't think people really grasp that. There's a lot of people, like even like, let's say Beyonce or somebody like that's a big star, like that comes with a lot of jobs. It's a lot of people that are being hired to work, if Beyonce has a hit song and goes on tour, that's that. I have a better understanding of that as I get older, and the importance of success for people.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, it's an institution Hollywood and LA in general for the film. So there's no way it's going away, for as much as technology may allow people to just be making their movies American movie style in their backyard in Wisconsin. So
right. And I mean, I guess that's another part.
You still want both. You still want LA and American movie for sure. So
oh, of course. Yeah. You know, you know, just knowing that somebody anywhere could be in a coffee shop, like writing their script is great. And then also knowing that, that it can happen for you. You know, if you're talented and you love it, you know, just go ahead and do that. And then, yeah, you may be the person responsible for a lot of people working after that. So worst case
scenario, just be a Nepo baby and you're good. So
yeah, that's true.
I could segue a little bit of physical media related to a couple things we just talked about.
Yeah, here's Pat's physical media section, which I always love. I like to see what you're consuming there. So
I bought this from Vinegar Syndrome 100% on the cover. I was not familiar with this movie, but I absolutely loved it. So Primal Rage from Vinegar Syndrome. I bought this purely because if you're not watching, there's a baboon raging on the cover. So
awesome.
So this is an 80s horror movie. It has all the classic tropes of what a trash 80s horror movie would have. Basically, you start with a baboon that's being tested on, ends up biting a couple of college students.
The virus stuff, yeah.
Yeah, it's a virus movie, turns the college students into basically kind of zombies, but also a little bit aware. They're spreading the infection. It's almost like a rage virus. Ends in this ridiculous, almost like Star Wars kind of vibe, costume party on Halloween at the end. The music is fantastic. If you like The Substance, Primal Rage is absolutely hardcore recommendation.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, cool. I got to check that out. I've never seen.
So good. Yeah, like I said, I had never even heard of it. So blind buy, hugely happy with that. And then sticking with Sean Baker, this is the movie that.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen Red. Yeah.
So I saw this in theaters. Simon Rex. I loved this movie. I've watched this a couple times since it came out. It's really, I think it was 2021. Just really did not get a lot of discussion or talk. It certainly didn't get like any Academy recognition. This was basically his follow-up to the Florida Project. It is one of the movies that is bolstered by the lead performance. Simon Rex is so fucking funny and fantastic in this movie. Like he's in every scene. Like this is like his movie. It's just everything is revolved around him, and his performance as just like a downtrodden porn star trying to scrape back and just take advantage of like who he can just to get back to the top is fucking hilarious. I absolutely love Red Rocket. So if for all the people who are watching Nora, checking out Sean Baker now, check out this one. I feel like this one will get more attention now with everything going on with Sean Baker.
Great. So. Good for him. Yeah, actually, I went to go start to watch that. I don't know what it was on, maybe one of the streamers. And then I got distracted and didn't. And I didn't want to watch it without, paying attention. So yeah, I'm glad that you brought that back to attention.
He's so fucking funny. I remember so he was a DJ at MTV. I don't remember quoting for that, but the only thing I was familiar with him, and I remember him, was Scary Movie 3 with Charlie Sheen. He basically played the Joaquin Phoenix character in the Science spoof of that.
Amazing.
So,
yeah.
So he was always very funny with like random shit like that. It's just unexpected. And then sort of Sean Baker, obviously like kind of king of like choosing roles, like casting around like a certain character and like kind of really digging into that. Like him choosing Simon Rex was so out of left field and it just works so well. He's like so perfect for that movie. So definitely watch it. Yeah. Yeah, that's my physical media report. So
well, I love it. I always love to see that. And you always got such great picks. So we'll put those in maybe in the show notes so people know to check them out. I was going to say, so we want to move over to the song of the week. We always have our song of the week to you that are listening, and we have a great jukebox playlist on Spotify that we've curated, full of eclectic picks. Mine today is a little tribute to David Johansen, who passed away, the last remaining member of the New York Dolls, the lead singer, right? So also, it's always hard for me because I love like Jim Jarmusch, like we're talking about movies and we're talking about like that artistic, amazing 1970s through the 80s, New York, Bowery, CBGBs. scene. And as a just reflecting on Buster Poindexter, we love the New York Dolls, but like we also love Buster Poindexter, and he had that alter ego. And also in Scrooge, the amazing Niagara Falls, character there as the cab driver in Scrooge with Bill Murray. So I just want to pay a little tribute to him. I'm not like, the New York Dolls are awesome, but I'm not like, I wouldn't say I'm a fanatic or anything, but I remember when we started my old band, the Scissors, our drummer, Pat Kilbride, he would just like always talk about the New York Dolls. And he's like, he would be like, you best know I'm in love, LUV. So a little tribute to that song with Looking for a Kiss. I'm going to add that to our playlist because it's fucking amazing song. And also, these New York Dolls dressing in drag in New York City in the 70s, glamming it up. Like, that's fucking punk rock, man. And fuck yeah, David Johansen, rest in peace. And thanks for all you did.
Yeah, I think a lot of people had similar experiences as me when they realized that Buster Poindexter was the singer of the New York Dolls.
Yeah,
it's just like, because I remember that, like, was it the Hot Hot Hot? Was that the big hit he had with Buster Poindexter? I remember that as a kid because I would be like on MTV and whatnot, and then I would discover New York Dolls later when I was like kind of digging back into the punk scene as a young man. And then, like at some point in my 20s, realizing like that was the same person was pretty mind-blowing. So
I think, I think everybody had that exact same experience. It's like, wait a second. This is the guy from the New York Dolls. It's fucking awesome,
Right. What's the movie? I just saw him in what's the time traveling movie with Mick Jagger?
Gosh, I don't know.
And maybe Emilio Estevez. Free Jack. He's in Free Jack. And I was just watching that not that long ago. It's the 1992 movie. Yeah, Emilio Estevez, Mick Jagger, and Anthony Hopkins. It's not a very good...
What a cast.
For as awesome as that sounds, it's not that great of a movie. On paper, it's just way more entertaining. But I remember seeing him in that just in the last 6 months. That's just popping into my mind. Speaking of Mick Jagger, gave a nice little delivery last night. So
yeah.
I love that New York Dolls album. That was a pretty pivotal one. Should I listen to more Buster Poindexter? To be honest, I've never really listened to it.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of like, man, we should listen to that whole, like, it's like the last time I listened to like Dee Dee Ramone's, like a Dee Dee King record. There's like,
well, that
but there's like a few songs on that are like, kind of like, I wouldn't call them hits, but they're the hits that and then when you listen to that whole record, there's some songs on there that are just like, I didn't really, this isn't like the Buzz Dee Dee King song, and you're like, wow, there's some discovery in here that I should have been paying attention to. So yeah, maybe we should listen to the whole Buster Poindexter record here and see what else there is to discover than Hot Hot Hot, right?
Too good. He had such a great face. It's so good. I'm just looking at him right now. Awesome pick. Yeah, looking for a kiss. Looking forward to revisiting that one.
Yeah.
All right, my pick. We've already mentioned him today. Kind of a similar, ode pick from David Lynch. Recent passing. We talked about him a little bit last week. I would have liked to see a little bit more of like a tribute to him last night.
I agree.
You only had that 2-second clip. You had Laura Dern with Isabella in the blue dress.
Right.
Like, you could have like done, even if it was just super short, maybe just have him come out. They brought Morgan Freeman out. It wouldn't have been surprised if that was kind of the plan, if they were going to have that. And then they, for time.
But Gene Hackman,
only did the Gene Hackman tribute.
Maybe.
So that's possible, but it is what it is, but it was awesome that they were there. And so, yeah.
And I mean, let's just say David Lynch, not necessarily, I mean, that's pretty indie for most people,
But that's the balance with the Oscars is,
right.
It's all cinephiles, and yet they're beholden to the normies who don't watch movies every day. So
right, exactly.
That's the economic peril is that they're, and they have to like, they opted for the James Bond tribute.
Oh, right. Yeah. And I'm thinking the whole time, is this thing like sponsored by Amazon somehow? Because it's like,
it had to have been.
Yeah, it had to. But then, like, I'm talking with my girlfriend. They're like, but it's on ABC, like, and ABC's Disney. So, like, it was a little disjointed, like, why there was so much Amazon shit on there. But anyway, yeah.
Everything's owned by a couple dudes. So it's like, even if it seems like it's dirty. Yeah.
Totally.
It had something to give. Yeah. There's, we didn't mention it. Margaret Qualley was the one doing the dancing with it, and she looked pretty good in it. But there was no point to it. It's like, what? Like, they haven't even had
there's no Bond movie this year. Right. Like, what the fuck? Yeah, totally. I agree with that.
It was almost, there is a reading of it I could see as like it was an in memoriam for Bond.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which
would be kind of like a fuck you to the Amazon, basically being like, well, now that you own that, this it's pretty much over. So
it's amazing that they just want to do like what they're doing with Star Wars and just like, make a universe for 007 that's just continually going to make an insane amount of money for them. That's probably the goal,
Well, yeah, that's what everybody's rightfully worried about. So
yeah,
that is the death of a franchise. I'm not saying guarantee, but if you jump the ship, it just becomes less special. So anyway, David Lynch, in memoriam, would have been nice. But I am going with one of his songs from his album, The Big Dream, from 2013. It's not a soundtrack to any of his movies. It's just one of his standalone albums. And the song I'm Waiting Here, it's his composition, but it's featuring Likey Lee, the Swedish pop, indie pop singer, on vocals. So it's a fucking gorgeous song. Like, it captures the vibe of David Lynch so well. It's very melancholy and dreamlike sound, that is kind of his defining sound and his interest for his movies. And this is just an awesome song that I've always thought about. And to be honest, it is, like I said, a little melancholy. I was just like listening to this morning. It was like, it would have been amazing to get an in memoriam with this song, because it just so captures the vibe of what he is. But at the same time, it's almost like a parting song that was kind of having a vibe that would have been beautiful for that. But have your own memoriam and listen to I'm Waiting Here, because it's an awesome song from one of his albums. So
well, very cool. Yeah, there's a great playlist here on Spotify. We always put it in the show notes, so you can find these picks and more in the show notes. And yeah, look, I'm loving this talk. I'm glad we covered a lot of stuff. It's like, it's timely after the Oscars. There's a lot of stuff going on and a lot of good movies to see. So go out and check out The Substance, and we'll be back here with my pick. I'm not exactly sure what that's going to be, but we do this pretty much bi-weekly. And if you're new to us, please just follow us wherever you like to get your information. We're kind of like more so on, I think, YouTube mostly, but you can also go to remainderspod.com and find us and all the socials. And we look forward to talking to you and hearing your thoughts on the movies that we cover.
Oh, very excited for your next clip. 2025 is looking pretty good so far. So
yeah, I agree with that. All right, buddy. Well, hey, have a good week until then, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. See you, bud.
See ya. Bye-bye.